The University of Wisconsin-Madison is situated on 935 acres in the heart of downtown Madison, Wisconsin. With a population of 66,000 students, faculty, and staff, it is a city within a city. The UW-Madison Police Department is responsible for the safety and security of all students, faculty, staff, and visitors. In 2003, the Emergency Management Unit was established in a large part to manage Homeland Security terrorism prevention programs for the UW-Madison campus and several of the UW system schools. Since its inception, it has rapidly expanded into other areas of emergency preparedness. The unit coordinates various university and community entities to ensure that the UW-Madison students, faculty, staff, and visitors and the community are prepared to respond to emergencies, recover from them, and mitigate against their impacts. Emergency management also works closely with several of our campus partners to develop and implement UW-Madison's University Response Plan. Crisis and disaster events require campuses to not only prepare for such events, but they also require an understanding of response capabilities and limitations. It is impossible to predict exactly when a crisis or disaster will occur, or the extent to which they might affect the campus. Through deliberate planning, preparing, and training, losses from such events can be greatly minimized.
As lead first responders, we have the responsibility to plan for and be ready for emergencies and unforeseen events. We need to be able to ensure our organizational readiness and attest our capabilities. But until we face the real crises, we never know for sure if we're truly going to rise to the occasion. One of the ways we can ready ourselves is by using full-scale exercises. Here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, we recently held a full-scale exercise, the largest one in our county's history. We tested ourselves. We learned a tremendous amount about ourselves and our partners. I encourage you, if you have the opportunity, to test yourself in the same way.
As the university began to consider planning for a full-scale exercise like Operation Badger 1, we looked at the three different types of exercises that are defined by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. These include a tabletop exercise, a functional exercise, and a full-scale exercise, which Operation Badger 1 falls in the full-scale exercise realm. The tabletop exercise, which we've run here on campus, generally involves a facilitator who leads a group discussion. So all the members of the Emergency Operations Center are sitting around a table discussing how the university would actually respond in an emergency. When we get to the full functional exercise, the functional exercise looks at more of a realistic approach where the Emergency Operations Center team would actually make phone calls, would actually do some of the things that they would do in a real emergency. However, the scene itself doesn't exist. That's actually a simulated scene for the exercise. When we get down to the full-scale exercise, it's actually exactly that. We actually have a scene, we actually use the real activation protocols, we use the real equipment that would be used, and make sure that we're responding in the most realistic manner possible for the exercise. The university takes exercise planning very seriously and takes real emergency planning seriously. Since September 11th, 2001, the university has actually had 21 real activations of its Emergency Operations Center. These 21 real activations have laid the foundation for plan improvement. Along with these, the university is very serious about planning and exercising to make sure that our resources are capable of responding to disaster events. So we've actually set up to at least twice a year test the university's response plan. Since 2001, we've actually tested the response plan 17 times, giving us a total of 38 actual times that the either real or exercised emergency has transpired on campus.
Car on fire in lot 34.
The planning for Operation Badger 1 actually really began for us in November of 2008. In November of 2008, we actually ran a small full-scale exercise that only entailed the University Police Department, one small local fire department, and then our Emergency Operations Center. Right after that, we realized that we were ready for a full-scale, full exercise that would involve our partners within the community. Our first goal was to first test our capabilities, make sure we were ready before we integrated into the larger community for an exercise. So after 2008, we began to plan a series of functional exercises that would lead us into the Operation Badger 1 exercise. So over 18 months of planning and preparation went into getting ready for this full-scale exercise. Originally, we had invited a smaller number of organizations within the county to participate, but then as local jurisdictions found out that we were doing this exercise, the number of participants began to grow. By May 26th of 2010, this really became the largest full-scale exercise in the history of Dane County, with over 450 people participating in the exercise. The exercise was called Operation Badger 1 and began at 8 a.m. and lasted until 4 p.m. on May 26th. Although the events only lasted 8 hours, the planning was long and took 18 months of us having monthly meetings with the partners within the community that assisted in preparations for the exercise. By the time that we got around to the exercise, we were up to 15 different organizations in the Dane County area that wanted to participate. These organizations included the UW-Madison itself, the UW-Madison Police Department, the UWPD First Responders, the Madison Police Department, the Dane County Sheriff's Department, the Shorewood Hills Police Department, the Madison Fire Department, the Dane County 911 Center, Dane County Emergency Management, the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, UW Hospital, Meriter Hospital, the St. Mary's Hospital, and the VA Hospital. We also had 110 different community members and also school districts, people from different school districts in the area that assisted in planning and also were victim volunteers in this exercise. As part of the planning, we actually hired makeup artists to come in and do what's called moulage of the patients to make this as realistic of an exercise as we possibly could for all the responders involved.
Car on fire in lot 34.
Is there anyone in the vehicle?
Can't tell. It's a pretty big fire. I'm not going to get close to it.
The Operation Badger 1 events on May 26, 2010 began with a car fire in a university parking lot. A 911 call was received by the UWPD Communication Center,
1023 vehicles pulling in Gulf, I'll be out checking.
And UWPD officers were sent to the scene. Shortly after their arrival, the Madison Fire Department responded and put out the fire. When arson investigators looked inside the burned car, bones were located.
I'm assuming that they're human remains. We foamed it down pretty good. We didn't find it until after we got the fire knocked. So right now we're treating it as a crime scene, staying away.
Upon a further search of the area, a suspicious package was noticed in the vicinity of the car fire. After a UW K-9 team identified the suspicious package as having the potential to be a bomb, the Dane County Bomb Squad was called to assist. These two events triggered an activation of the university's Emergency Operations Center. Dane County's Emergency Operations Center was also activated.
Shots being fired. Where at? At Bradley Hall. Shots were heard being fired near Bradley Hall.
Approximately 1 hour later at 9:00 a.m., multiple 911 calls were received stating there was an active shooter near Bradley Residence Hall.
Hey, what happened?
Other calls indicated there had been an explosion outside Bradley Hall.
There's been an explosion at Bradley Hall.
Law enforcement officers were dispatched to the second scene and discovered no active shooting at that time. When they arrived, they encountered multiple wounded victims from gunshot wounds and shrapnel from the explosion. While officers were setting up a perimeter, a secondary device was located outside the building. The Madison Police Department and Dane County Sheriff's Office's Tactical Rescue Team and emergency response teams were requested for additional assistance. While waiting for the teams to arrive, a hostage taker called 911 to confirm he had hostages inside of Bradley Hall.
Get me the media here now or these people are going to die.
Incident command was established on the scene, and the Dane County command vehicle was requested for command staff to report to. The walking wounded were triaged to a safe location, and when the SWAT teams arrived, they safely removed the wounded that were in the hostage taker's line of sight. Injured victims were transported to the 4 area hospitals for further treatment. The hostage negotiation team was requested and began negotiating with the hostage taker for the release of the hostages. The American Red Cross arrived on scene after being requested to assist displaced students as well as worried staff and family members. They set up a family assistance center and counseled anyone who arrived for their services. The Salvation Army was called upon to feed the first responders, and they were quickly able to set up and make hundreds of meals for everyone on the scene. While the activities were going on at the scenes, the Emergency Operations Center was in full swing. Multiple leaders from campus received a phone call stating there was an activation of the EOC, and they were asked to go to the designated spot to assist with the crisis. When they arrived, they were briefed on the situation by the EOC manager and tasked with responsibilities of the group that they were assigned to. Among the groups involved were planning, logistics, information management, finance admin, and operations. Each group's assigned tasks revolved around supporting the scene. The executive group was also activated and responded to their designated location to assist with policy decisions and conduct press conferences.
Our two speakers today, first is our Chancellor, Biddy Martin, and our second will be UW-Madison Chief of Police, Sue Riseling. Chancellor Martin will provide an opening statement. Chief Riseling will provide you some information about the details of today's incidents.
As you know, the University of Wisconsin-Madison has experienced a set of horrifying events today. A significant number of people have been injured and 6 people have been killed on our campus. To say that we're shocked and deeply saddened would be a gross understatement.
Everything you guys have done so far is lie to me.
Eventually, the hostage negotiations took a turn for the worse and the hostage taker became uncooperative. The hostage taker began threatening to kill the remaining hostages, at which point the SWAT teams entered the room and eliminated the threat. All hostages were safely rescued without any further casualties.
What I can tell you is that the situation at Bradley Hall has been resolved, in that the suspect has been neutralized and that all of the 18 hostages that were held there have been free and none of them were wounded during the day.
At the end of the day, there were debrief sessions called hot washes for all involved. Lessons learned were discussed, as well as what went well and what could have went better. Interviews were conducted with key players in the exercise in order to gain immediate feedback about the exercise. In the days following the exercise, more meetings were held to further discuss how Operation Badger 1 went. All groups had a chance to talk about their experiences as well as hear from others. A 90-day after-action review process was set up by the UWPD Emergency Management Unit, and the end result was a report detailing the entire process from start to finish, including suggestions for improvement and the implementation process for those suggestions. From the initial planning meeting to the completion of the after-action review, the entire process took over 16 months and cost over $30,000.
I have been nothing but impressed with the people, all the first responders and all the volunteers that came to the incident today and helped us out with that. It is sometimes difficult to treat things like they're real. You know that there's no bullets and guns, and you know that the explosives are not necessarily real, but everybody today that I've talked to was very committed to making this exercise turn out as positively as it could, both from the exercise perspective and then for learning what they could for when they have to do this in the real world. So I was nothing but impressed. Again, everybody did a great job working through issues that they were presented with. We certainly have identified issues. We need to work on those going forward. I don't know that we'll ever completely eliminate them because it's an emergency, it's a crisis, and those issues are going to spring up and you need to be able to work through them.
Our part came in when it became a barricaded suspect. We had the shots fired, we had people who were injured laying outside the building. So one of our first concerns was how do we get the people out, who were injured. And we utilized, our SWAT team and the tactical emergency medical team with us to actually start bringing those people out and getting them some medical care. What we need to really improve upon is communication is going to be key in all of these situations. When you have something like this, we have different entities. We have fire, we had the county, we had the city, we had the UW, and we all have to be able to communicate together so we're all on one page. And that's going to be one of our challenges that we're going to have to work through.
Being able to take part in an exercise like today was, how does that benefit your operations going forward?
It gives us time to work together in a little more realistic situations. A foreign spot is an abandoned house, it's a dorm. Just, around Madison, we're a very large campus. We got encounter people, we're doing building searches, we're encountering furniture, more realistic instead of doing an abandoned building or an empty office warehouse. It allowed us to kind of work together, work on our communications internally, our movement, and specifically working with the city of Madison for the first time.
Overall, I thought that definitely there were some areas that we're going to have to make improvements on, but overall I thought it went very well. I thought the scenario itself, in terms of the incidents that we were involved in, were very realistic, could definitely happen on this campus. I thought that the EOC group members took a real passionate and involvement in the actual scenes and the work that they had to do. I thought that they really, right away they came in, they got going in terms of their responsibilities and making things happen. I felt that decisions were made very quickly within the EOC. So overall, I would say that I thought, in terms of the exercise itself and the level of realism that people portrayed in the EOC, I thought was very, very good.
What I'm the most excited about for the day is I've been doing this for about 30 years, and this is the largest exercise that I've been involved with. So I hope that for emergency responders that took part in this exercise today, for the next 30 years, it continues to improve and get better, and they're able to work through some of the pitfalls that we fell into today while preserving the things that went very well.